Sir, you need to sit down right now. I didn't raise my voice. I never do. But every word landed with the weight of a woman who had spent the last 6 months learning how to stand her ground after years of being told she couldn't. The man in seat 12C didn't move. He just stared at me with dark eyes that probably scared most people into submission. The vape pen hung loosely between his fingers, smoke still curling toward the overhead detector that had just triggered every alarm on this Boeing 737. My name is Arya Chun, and I've learned something important about fear. It only controls you if you let it. 3 years ago, I would have apologized to him. I would have smiled nervously, made myself smaller, found a way to defuse the situation without rocking the boat. That's what Preston trained me to do. Apologize. Shrink. Disappear. But Preston wasn't here anymore. And the woman he tried to break had rebuilt herself into something he never saw coming. So when this stranger locked eyes with me, probably expecting me to back down like everyone else in his life apparently did, I reached forward and snatched the vape pen from his hand in one fluid motion. The movement was instinctive. Dad's training kicking in before my brain could overthink it.
Quick. Precise. No hesitation.
I sealed the device in a plastic evidence bag while maintaining eye contact. Federal aviation regulations prohibit smoking or vaping on commercial aircraft. You triggered an emergency alarm. There are 300 passengers on this flight, including 24 children, and you just terrified half of them because you couldn't wait 2 hours to get your nicotine fix. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Or curiosity. Like he was seeing something he hadn't expected. So here's what's going to happen. I continued, my voice steady even as my heart hammered. You're going to sit down, fasten your seatbelt, and stay seated until we land. TSA officers will be waiting at the gate. You'll cooperate with them. And you'll never pull something this reckless on one of my flights again. The cabin had gone silent. 200 passengers holding their breath. He leaned back slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. Then he did something strange. He smiled. Not a smirk. Not a challenge. Something almost respectful. Yes, ma'am, he said quietly. I turned and walked back toward the galley, my legs shaking so badly, I thought I might collapse. But I made it. I always make it. That's the thing about surviving hell. You learn to keep walking even when you're falling apart inside. Hey, I know you probably didn't expect this story to start on an airplane with a stubborn passenger and a flight attendant having the worst day of her week. But stay with me, because what happened next changed everything. Where are you watching from, by the way? Drop a comment and let me know. And however your day is going, whatever you're dealing with, I hope my story reminds you that sometimes the worst moments lead to the most unexpected blessings. Because here's what I believe about life. Karma isn't just about punishment. It's about balance. For every person who tried to break you, the universe eventually sends someone who reminds you what it feels like to be whole. I just didn't know my reminder would come in the form of a man who looked like he could kill someone with his bare hands. Let me back up. 6 months ago, I was still married to Preston Hartley. On paper, he was perfect. Successful real estate developer. Charming smile. The kind of man who opened doors and pulled out chairs and made everyone think he was a gentleman. Behind closed doors, he was a monster. Not the kind who left bruises you could photograph for evidence.
Preston was smarter than that.
He broke me in ways that didn't show. Controlled what I wore, who I talked to, how I spent every minute of my day. Told me I was lucky he stayed with someone as difficult as me. Made me believe I deserved the loneliness, the criticism, the constant erosion of everything I used to be. I met him when I was 22. Fresh out of flight attendant training, excited about life, still grieving my mom but hopeful about the future. He seemed stable. Safe. After losing mom to cancer when I was 16, I wanted someone solid. Someone who would stay. Instead, I got someone who stayed just long enough to make me forget who I was. For 3 years, I shrank. Apologized when I hadn't done anything wrong. Walked on eggshells in my own home. Became a ghost of the girl Dad raised to be strong.
Dad.
God, my dad. Thomas Chun. Retired hand-to-hand combat instructor. Widowed father who did everything he could to raise me right after mom died. He taught me to throw a punch before I learned algebra. Made me run obstacle courses on Saturday mornings. Trained me to defend myself, to stand tall, to never let anyone make me feel small. Then I met Preston and forgot all of it. Dad never liked him. Never said it outright, but I saw it in his eyes every time Preston came to family dinners. The way Dad would watch him, assessing, like he could see through the charm to something darker underneath. Arya, he told me once, about a year into the marriage, you don't smile anymore. Not really. I told him he was imagining things. That marriage was just different than being single. That I was happy. The lie tasted like ash. It took 3 years and one final fight for me to leave. Preston screaming at me for forgetting to pick up his dry cleaning. Me finally snapping back. Him grabbing my arm hard enough to leave marks. Me remembering in that moment everything Dad taught me about leverage and weak points and how to break a hold. I broke his grip. Grabbed my emergency bag. Left. Filed for divorce the next morning. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of rebuilding. 6 months of therapy appointments and crying in my car and slowly remembering what it felt like to make my own decisions without checking over my shoulder. 6 months of Dad telling me how proud he was every single day. Flying helped. Being 30,000 feet in the air, responsible for passenger safety, having clear rules and procedures to follow. It gave me structure. Purpose. A way to practice being strong again. Most days anyway. Today had been hard from the start. Anniversary of Mom's death. 12 years gone, and it still hurt like yesterday. I'd spent my layover in Dallas crying in the hotel bathroom, looking at old photos on my phone. Mom's smile. Her laugh. The way she used to braid my hair before school. I missed her so much it physically hurt. Then Preston's lawyer called about some paperwork issue with the settlement. Just hearing his name sent my pulse racing, my hands shaking, all those old patterns of fear flooding back. I almost called in sick. Almost stayed in that hotel room and let someone else take this flight back to Seattle. But Dad's voice echoed in my head. You don't heal by hiding, sweetheart. You heal by showing up scared and doing it anyway. So I showed up and walked straight into a situation that would change my entire life. The man in 12C wasn't done surprising me. After I'd confiscated the vape and returned to the galley, my supervisor Keisha found me. Girl, did you just alpha female a passenger into submission? I did my job, I said, hands still trembling as I poured myself water. That wasn't just doing your job. That was... I don't even know what that was. You okay? I nodded.
Lit. I fine.
20 minutes later, the call button for 12C lit up. Every fiber of my being wanted to send someone else. But I'd started this. I'd finish it. I walked down the aisle, professional smile fixed in place. How can I help you? He looked up at me, and for the first time, I really saw him. Not as a problem passenger. Not as a rule breaker. But as a person. Mid-30s. Dark hair that fell naturally across his forehead like he'd long stopped caring about appearances. Sharp jawline. Tattoos peeking out from under expensive suit sleeves. Eyes that held something I recognized immediately.
Pain.
Deep, bone-tired pain that mirrored my own. I wanted to apologize, he said quietly. His voice was different now.
Softer.
No challenge in it. You were right. That was reckless. Selfish. I wasn't thinking about anyone but myself. I wasn't prepared for genuine contrition. Thank you for saying that. I've been flying for 15 years. Never once caused a problem. Today. He paused, rubbing his face like he was exhausted. Today's been a difficult day. That's not an excuse. Just context. Something in his tone made me pause. That hollow quality. Like he was going through motions, existing but not really living. I knew that feeling intimately. I understand difficult days. I heard myself say. Doesn't make it okay, but I understand. He looked at me then with an intensity that should have felt intimidating, but somehow didn't. You handled that situation perfectly. I'm guessing you've had practice standing up to men who test boundaries. The observation was too accurate. Too knowing. I felt exposed.
Seen.
It was uncomfortable and oddly comforting at the same time. Let's just say I've learned not to back down, I replied carefully.
Good.
Don't ever lose that. There was something in the way he said it, like he meant it on a level deeper than a simple compliment, like he recognized the battle it took to build that kind of strength. Before I could respond, turbulence hit. The plane dropped suddenly and I stumbled. His hand shot out, steadying me by the elbow. The touch was gentle, careful, nothing like Preston's grabbing hands. Thank you, I said, regaining my balance. He pulled his hand back immediately, like he was afraid of overstepping. Of course. The seatbelt sign dinged on. I needed to get back to my jump seat. I should go, I said. He nodded. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Truly. I believed him. I don't know why, but I did. The rest of the flight passed in a blur of service, turbulence, and me trying not to think about the man in 12C, or why his apology felt different than every other passenger apology I'd ever received. When we landed in Seattle, TSA was waiting as promised. I gave my statement, handed over the evidence bag, watched as they escorted him away for questioning. He looked back once, met my eyes. Something passed between us in that moment. Recognition, maybe. Two people who understood what it meant to fight battles no one else could see. Then he was gone. I thought that was the end of it. I was so incredibly wrong. The TSA questioning took 40 minutes. I sat in that sterile airport security office, gave my statement 3 times, signed paperwork, and tried not to think about how exhausted I was. The officer asking questions was professional but thorough. What exactly happened? When I noticed the smoke, how the passenger responded, whether he made any threats. No threats, I confirmed. He complied immediately after I confronted him. That's unusual, the officer noted, making a mark on his tablet. Most passengers who trigger alarms get defensive, argumentative. I shrugged. He apologized, seemed genuinely remorseful. What I didn't say, he looked at me like he understood something about fighting to hold yourself together. Like he recognized the armor I wore, because he wore the same kind. They let me go eventually. Standard protocol violation. He'd get a fine, probably a no-fly list notation, maybe community service if he had a good lawyer. I grabbed my crew luggage and headed toward the parking garage, every muscle in my body aching. Between the emotional weight of Mom's anniversary and the adrenaline crash from the confrontation, I felt hollowed out. Empty. My phone buzzed.
Dad.
Hey, sweetheart. You land safe. His voice immediately brought tears to my eyes. I blinked them back.
Yeah, Dad.
Just heading home. You sound tired. Long day. Silence. Dad had always been able to read me better than anyone. Today was hard, wasn't it? Your mom. I stopped walking, pressing my hand against a concrete pillar to steady myself. 12 years. Why does it still hurt this much? Because love doesn't have an expiration date, Arya. You loved her. You miss her. That's not weakness. That's proof you have a heart that still works despite everything Preston tried to do to it. I smiled through the tears. When did you get so wise? Around the time I had to raise a stubborn daughter who inherited all her mother's fire. His tone softened. Come by tomorrow. I'll make breakfast. We'll look through photo albums if you want. Or we'll just sit and drink coffee and not talk about it. Whatever you need. I love you, Dad. Love you more, kiddo. Drive safe. I made it to my car before I completely broke down. Sat in the driver's seat of my beat-up Honda Civic and cried for everything I'd lost.
Mom.
3 years of my life to a man who never deserved me. The version of myself who used to believe good things could happen without a cost. But I also cried because I was free now. Because Dad was still here. Because I'd stood up to a stranger on a plane today and remembered what strength felt like. The crying helped. It always did. I drove home to my small studio apartment in Northgate. It wasn't much. Certainly nothing like the house I'd shared with Preston. But it was mine. My name on the lease. My rules. My space to heal. I ordered Thai food, took a shower hot enough to scald, and fell asleep watching cooking shows with the volume low. For the first time in months, I didn't have nightmares about Preston. Instead, I dreamed about dark eyes and a quiet apology and the strange feeling of being truly seen. 3 days later, I was working a morning flight to San Francisco when I saw him again. First class, seat 2A. Same expensive suit. Same dark hair falling across his forehead. Reading a book with complete focus like the chaos of boarding didn't exist around him. My stomach flipped. Professional smile, I reminded myself. He's just another passenger. Except he wasn't. He looked up as I passed, doing my pre-flight check. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by something that looked almost like relief. "Hello again," he said quietly. "Good morning. Welcome aboard." My voice came out steadier than I felt. I wasn't sure I'd see you again. Different flight, different route. He closed his book, giving me his full attention. I wanted to properly apologize. Last time felt rushed with TSA hovering. "You already apologized." "It's fine." "It's not fine. I disrupted your flight. Scared passengers. Put you in a difficult position." He paused. "I also never got your name." I hesitated. Passenger boundaries. Professional distance. All the rules I'd carefully maintained for 6 years of flying. But something about him pulled at me. Maybe it was the genuine remorse. Maybe it was the loneliness I recognized in his eyes. Maybe it was just that I was tired of living behind walls even when they kept me safe. "Arya," I said finally.
Arya Chen.
He smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his entire face, softening edges that looked like they'd been sharp for too long.
Arya.
"That's beautiful." Means air, doesn't it? Fitting for a flight attendant. My mom loved music. Opera, specifically. She said an aria was the most emotional, powerful part of any performance. I don't know why I shared that. I never talked about mom with strangers. The question was gentle, observant. She passed when I was 16. Cancer. "I'm sorry." And he meant it. I could hear it in his voice. Not the empty platitude people usually offered, but genuine sympathy from someone who understood loss. "Thank you." A passenger behind him cleared their throat, needing to get past. I was blocking the aisle. "I should let you work," he said. I nodded and moved forward, but felt his eyes follow me the entire way to the galley. Keisha cornered me immediately. "Girl, is that the same guy from the Seattle flight? The vape pen incident?"
"Yeah."
"And he's flying with us again? Coincidence or stalker vibes?" I laughed despite myself. Probably coincidence. Seattle to San Francisco is a major route. Lots of business travelers fly it regularly. Aha. And the way he was looking at you was definitely business-related. Stop. I'm just saying. Man looks at you like you're the only person in the room. That means something. I rolled my eyes and focused on pre-flight prep. But Keisha's words echoed in my head. The way he looked at me. Like I mattered. Like I was worth paying attention to. Preston used to look at me like I was an inconvenience. A problem to manage. A possession that required maintenance. This stranger looked at me like I was a person. The flight was smooth. I did my usual service routine, checked on passengers, handled a minor issue with a broken entertainment screen. Normal work. Normal day. Except I found myself aware of seat 2A the entire time. Hyper-aware. Noticing when he ordered coffee. When he declined the snack service. When he pulled out his phone and typed something with a frown that suggested bad news. About an hour into the flight, I was passing through first class when he flagged me down. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Actually, I was wondering if I could ask you something. Completely unrelated to flying." I glanced around. No call lights. No immediate needs. "Sure. You mentioned your mother loved opera. Did you inherit that? The love of music?" The question caught me off guard. I did, actually. Mom used to play recordings constantly. Puccini, Verdi, Mozart. I grew up falling asleep to arias. Do you have a favorite? Visi d'arte from Tosca. It's about a woman questioning why she's suffering when all she's done is live for art and love. I paused, realizing how much I was revealing. Why do you ask? He leaned back, something vulnerable crossing his face. I'm trying to understand beauty again. I've spent so long focused on survival and control that I forgot what it feels like to appreciate something just because it moves you. The honesty in his words hit me hard. This wasn't small talk. This was someone reaching out from a place of real loneliness. Music helps, I said softly. Even when everything else is falling apart, music reminds you that beautiful things still exist. Is that how you survived? Whatever put that look in your eyes? My breath caught.
He saw it.
The damage. The careful reconstruction. I survived because I had someone who never stopped believing I was strong enough to leave. And because I finally believed it myself. We held eye contact for a long moment, an entire conversation happening in silence. Two people acknowledging they'd both walked through fire. A call light dinged. I broke the connection. I should go.
Thank you, Arya.
For the recommendation. And for the honesty. I moved down the aisle, heart pounding. What was I doing?
I didn't know this man.
Didn't know anything about him except he'd broken FAA regulations and had eyes that held too much pain. But I wanted to know more. And that terrified me. When we landed in San Francisco, I watched him deplane with the other first-class passengers. He glanced back once, gave me a small nod, and disappeared into the terminal. I thought that would be it. But when I got back to the galley to collect my things, there was a note tucked into my crew bag. Hotel stationery. Neat handwriting. Arya, thank you for reminding me what it means to have a real conversation. If you're ever willing to talk more about music, survival, or anything else, I'd like that. No pressure.
No expectations.
Just two people who might understand each other.
The.
Below that, a phone number. I stared at that note for 5 full minutes. Every rational instinct screamed danger. I didn't know him. He could be anyone. After Preston, I'd promised myself I'd be careful. Guarded. Smart. But something about the way he wrote, two people who might understand each other, cracked something open inside me. I tucked the note into my pocket.
Didn't text him that night.
Or the next day. But I didn't throw the note away either. 2 weeks passed. I flew my normal routes. Visited Dad. Went to therapy. Continued the slow work of healing. And thought about the stranger named D more than I wanted to admit. Then one evening, sitting in my apartment after a particularly hard therapy session about trust and vulnerability, I pulled out my phone. Stared at his number for 10 minutes. Finally typed, "This is Arya. From the flights. I'm not sure why I'm texting except that you were right. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who understands." I hit send before I could overthink it. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "I'm glad you reached out. Would you like to meet for coffee? Somewhere public.
Daytime."
Whatever makes you feel safe. The fact that he immediately addressed safety made something loosen in my chest. Tuesday afternoon. There's a cafe near Pike Place Market. Common grounds. I'll be there. Thank you for trusting me enough to try. I set my phone down and took a shaky breath. What was I doing? Meeting a stranger who'd already shown questionable judgment with the vaping incident. Someone I knew nothing about except that he carried pain and looked at me like I mattered. But maybe that was enough to start with. Maybe healing meant taking careful risks with people who'd earned a sliver of trust. Tuesday came too fast and too slow at the same time. I changed outfits 3 times. Finally settled on jeans and a simple blue sweater. Casual.
Non threatening.
The kind of thing you'd wear to meet a friend, not a date. Because this wasn't a date. This was just coffee. A conversation. 2 broken people talking about music and survival. I arrived at Common Grounds 15 minutes early. Ordered a latte. Sat at a corner table where I could see the door. Old habits from Dad's training. Always know your exits. He walked in exactly on time. Somehow he looked different in casual clothes. Dark jeans, gray Henley, leather jacket. Less polished businessman, more real person. The tattoos on his forearms were visible now. Intricate designs I couldn't make out from a distance. He spotted me immediately and smiled. That same transformation of his features I'd noticed on the plane.
Arya.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for suggesting somewhere public. That helped. He sat down across from me, and I noticed he'd positioned himself so his back was to the wall. Same instinct I had about exits. Someone else who'd learned to be careful. So he said, "Full disclosure time. You know almost nothing about me except that I have terrible impulse control on airplanes. That's not a great foundation for trust." I laughed despite my nerves. True. My name is Dante Moretti. I'm 34. I run a logistics company based here in Seattle. I've never been married. No kids. I have a younger sister, who I'd die for. And I've spent most of my adult life building walls so high I forgot what it felt like to let anyone pass them. The honesty was startling, refreshing. Most people led with accomplishments and carefully curated facts. He led with vulnerability. Logistics company. What kind? He hesitated. Just for a second. Import and export. Shipping containers, warehouse management, supply chain coordination. It's boring corporate stuff mostly. Something in the hesitation made me wonder if there was more to it. But I didn't push.
Hai varia Chen.
28. Flight attendant for 6 years. Recently divorced from a 3-year marriage that should have ended much sooner. I have a dad, who's my best friend, and a mom I still miss every single day. And I'm trying to figure out who I am now that I'm finally free to decide for myself. Recently divorced. Is that why you looked like you'd dealt with difficult men before? I stirred my latte, considering how much to share. My ex-husband was very good at breaking people down, making them small. I spent 3 years forgetting I was strong. The last 6 months remembering. Dante's jaw tightened. He hurt you. Not in ways that left scars you could see. Those are often the worst kind. He held my eyes. For what it's worth, the woman who told me to sit down on that plane didn't look small to me. She looked like someone who'd fought her way back to herself and wasn't going to apologize for taking up space anymore. Tears pricked my eyes. I blinked them back. Thank you for seeing that. Hard to miss. We talked for 2 hours. About music and loss and the strange process of healing. About his sister Lucia, who taught elementary school and reminded him to stay human. About my dad and his combat training and how it saved me in more ways than physical.
Dante was easy to talk to.
He listened without trying to fix things. Asked questions that showed he actually cared about the answers. Made me laugh with dry humor that caught me off guard. And never once made me feel pressured or uncomfortable. When I finally checked my phone, I was shocked to see how much time had passed. I should probably go, I said reluctantly. Early flight tomorrow. Can I walk you to your car? You don't have to. I know.
I'd like to.
If that's okay. We walked the 3 blocks to the parking garage in comfortable silence. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone streets. Seattle in autumn was beautiful.
Cool air.
Turning leaves. The smell of coffee and salt water. At my car, he paused. I had a really good time today. I'd like to do this again. If you're open to it. I'd like that too. No pressure. We move at whatever pace feels right to you. I'm just grateful you gave me a chance. Something about the way he said it made me brave. Why did you give me your number? You could have just apologized and moved on with your life. He considered the question carefully. Because in that moment when you told me to sit down, you looked at me like I was just a person making a mistake. Not a threat. Not someone to fear. Just a man having a bad day who needed to be called out. Do you know how rare that is? To have someone see you as human first. I understood completely. Yeah.
Ido.
So, I gave you my number hoping maybe you'd want to see the human version. Not the guy who triggers alarms. I smiled. I think I'm starting to. He stepped back, giving me space. Text me when you get home safe? If you're comfortable with that. I will. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. Maybe years. That night, after texting him I'd arrived safely, we exchanged messages until midnight. Nothing deep. Just easy conversation. Music recommendations. Favorite foods. Random thoughts about life. It felt normal. Comfortable. Safe. Over the next 3 weeks, we met for coffee 4 more times. Each meeting a little longer. Each conversation a little deeper. He told me about growing up in a complicated family. about losing both parents young and raising Lucia himself, about building his business from nothing through sheer determination. I told him about Mom's final weeks, about the slow erosion of my marriage, about the night I finally left and how Dad helped me pack while Preston was at work. We never touched beyond casual shoulder bumps when we walked, never crossed into territory that felt like dating. Just two people becoming friends. Maybe more. Eventually. I was okay with slow. Slow felt safe. Then one Tuesday evening, everything changed. I was at Dad's house for our weekly dinner. He'd made his famous stir-fry. We were laughing about a story from his training days when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello.
Arya Chen.
Male voice. Official tone. Yes. This is Detective Morrison with Seattle PD. Do you know a Dante Moretti? My stomach dropped.
Ida. Why?
Is he okay?
He's fine.
But we need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Mr. Moretti. Would you be available to come to the station tomorrow? What is this about? A pause. Mr. Moretti is under investigation for organized crime activity. We've been monitoring his communications. Your number came up multiple times. We need to determine the nature of your involvement. The world tilted. Organized crime.
Dante.
The man I'd been meeting for coffee. Who listened to my stories about Mom and healing. Who made me laugh. Who felt safe. I don't understand. I managed. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Precinct downtown. This is just preliminary questions. You're not under arrest or suspicion. We just need information. He hung up. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, trying to process what I'd just heard. Dad crossed the kitchen in 2 steps.
Arya?
What's wrong? You're white as a sheet. I think I just made a terrible mistake.
I didn't sleep that night.
Kept replaying every conversation with Dante, looking for signs I'd missed. Red flags I'd ignored because I wanted so badly to believe someone could see me and not want to hurt me. Organized crime. The words kept circling my brain like vultures. What did that even mean? Drugs? Weapons? Human trafficking? My stomach turned at each possibility. Dad stayed up with me. Made coffee at 3 a.m. when it was clear sleep wasn't happening. Sat across from me at his kitchen table while I spiraled. Tell me everything, he said quietly. From the beginning. So I did. The vaping incident. The note. The coffee dates. Every conversation we'd had. How safe he made me feel. How he never pushed. Never crossed boundaries. Did he ever ask you to do anything illegal? Dad asked.
No.
Never. Did he ask about your flight schedules? Access to restricted areas? Security protocols? I thought hard.
No.
He asked about my life. My mom. My recovery from Preston. Normal questions. Dad rubbed his jaw. The same gesture he used when assessing threats during his training days. Could be they're wrong about him. Or could be he's very good at making people comfortable while he uses them. The second option made me feel sick. I'm so stupid. You're not stupid. You're healing. There's a difference. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We go to this meeting tomorrow. You tell the truth. You haven't done anything wrong. Whatever Dante is involved in, that's on him, not you. What if I'm a terrible judge of character? What if I keep choosing men who hurt me?
Arya.
Look at me. Dad waited until I met his eyes. You left Preston. That took courage and clarity. You're building a new life. You're doing the work. One person lying to you doesn't erase all that growth. I wanted to believe him. But sitting in that police station the next morning, I felt like the naive girl who'd married Preston all over again. Stupid. Trusting.
Blind.
Detective Morrison was maybe 50. Tired eyes. Wedding ring. The kind of cop who'd seen too much to be surprised by human nature anymore. Thank you for coming in, Miss Chen. I know this is unexpected. Can you tell me what this is about? What Dante supposedly did? He opened a file folder. Slid a photo across the table.
Dante. Getting out of a car.
Talking to 2 men I didn't recognize. The photo was grainy but clear enough to see the tension in his posture. Dante Moretti is the head of one of Seattle's oldest crime families. His logistics company is a front for money laundering, illegal gambling operations, and protection rackets throughout the city. I stared at the photo. That couldn't be right.
Dante was quiet,
Thoughtful. Gentle. He talked about his sister teaching kids. About wanting to understand beauty again. You're wrong, I heard myself say. We've been building this case for 2 years. We have surveillance.
wiretaps,
Financial records. Bank accounts in 3 countries. Mr. Moretti inherited his father's organization 5 years ago and has been running it ever since. The room felt too small. Too hot. What does this have to do with me? We need to know if you're working with him. If he's using your airline access for smuggling. If you're aware of his activities and haven't reported them. The accusation landed like a punch. I'm not working with anyone. I met him 5 weeks ago. We've had coffee. That's it. 5 meetings in 3 weeks. Multiple phone calls. Late-night text conversations. Morrison pulled out more papers. Phone records. Screenshots of messages. My private conversations laid out like evidence. My face burned. Those are personal. You had no right. We have every right when investigating organized crime. So I'll ask again. What is your relationship with Dante Moretti? I told you. We've had coffee. I thought he was just a normal guy dealing with his own problems. I didn't know anything about crime families or illegal operations. Did he ask you about flight schedules? Cargo manifests? Security procedures?
no.
We talked about music and loss and healing. Normal things. Morrison leaned back, studying me. You really don't know, do you? Know what? Dante Moretti is one of the most dangerous men in this city. He's smart, careful, hasn't made a mistake in 5 years. Then suddenly, he starts meeting with a flight attendant, leaving paper trails, getting sloppy.
He paused.
We think you're his weakness. The thing that's making him vulnerable. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound came out bitter. I'm nobody's weakness. I'm just a woman trying to rebuild her life who is dumb enough to trust someone again. Miss Chun, I believe you didn't know. But that doesn't change the situation. Dante Moretti has put you in danger. His enemies will see you as leverage. His allies will see you as a liability. You need protection. From who? From him. From everyone. This world doesn't forgive innocent bystanders. I stood up, legs shaking. Am I under arrest?
No.
You're free to go. But I'd advise you to cut all contact with Moretti. Block his number. Don't respond to messages. Pretend you never met him. That's it? Just walk away and hope I'm safe. That's how you stay alive. I walked out of that police station into bright morning sunlight that felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. My phone buzzed immediately.
Dante.
Good morning. I was thinking about that Puccini aria you mentioned. Found a recording I want to share with you. Coffee later? My finger hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct Dad trained into me screamed to block the number. Delete everything. Protect myself. But another part of me, the part that remembered how he looked at me like I mattered, needed answers. I typed back. We need to talk. In person. Today. The response came fast. Of course. Where and when? Discovery Park. Main parking lot. 1 hour. I'll be there. I drove to Dad's house first. Told him everything Morrison said. Showed him the messages. You're not going alone, Dad said immediately. He won't hurt me. You don't know that. You don't know him at all, apparently. Then come with me.
Stay in the car.
Close enough to help if I need it. But let me do this. Dad didn't like it. I could see the war on his face between protecting me and respecting my autonomy. You take your phone. Keep the line open to me. Any sign of danger, any feeling something's wrong, you run. Understand? I understand. We drove to Discovery Park separately. Dad parked 3 spaces away, with a clear view. I sat on a bench near the trail entrance and waited. Dante arrived exactly on time. Same as always. He walked toward me with that easy stride, starting to smile when he saw me. The smile died when he got close enough to see my face. What's wrong? He sat down, leaving space between us.
Always careful about space. Who are you?
My voice came out steady.
Cold.
Really? He went very still. What happened? Seattle PD happened. Detective Morrison happened. 2 hours of questions about my relationship with the head of a crime family happened. I watched his face. Waited for denial. Anger. Something. Instead, I saw resignation. Like he'd been waiting for this moment. Arya, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you lied to me? Why you let me think you were just a normal guy with a logistics company when you're apparently running illegal operations across the city? I never lied. I do run a logistics company. That's a front.
Don't play semantic games with me.
I deserve better than that. He closed his eyes.
Took a breath.
When he opened them again, the vulnerability I'd gotten used to seeing was gone, replaced by something harder, more guarded. You're right. You deserve the truth. So tell me. My father built an empire on violence and fear. When he died, I inherited that empire along with all its debts, enemies, and expectations. I was 29. I didn't want it, but turning it down meant my sister would become a target. So I took over, changed how we operated, got out of the worst parts of the business, focused on protection and territory management instead of drugs and trafficking. Protection. You mean extortion. I mean keeping people safe from worse threats. There are other families in this city, violent ones. They'd move into every neighborhood, every business, if someone didn't maintain boundaries. And you're the hero keeping them out? That's your justification?
No.
I'm not a hero. I'm a man trying to do less harm while surviving in a world I didn't choose. He turned toward me fully. But everything I told you about myself was true. I did raise Lucia. I do want to understand beauty again. I have spent years building walls. Meeting you was the first time in a decade I felt like a person instead of a position. You used me. I didn't. I wouldn't. Then why? Why approach me? Why the coffee dates and the conversations about my mom and the texts about music? What was the point?
The point was you.
His voice cracked slightly. You looked at me on that plane like I was just a man making a mistake. Not Dante Moretti, mob boss. Not someone to fear or use or manipulate. Just a person. Do you know how long it's been since anyone saw me that way? Tears burned my eyes. I refused to let them fall. So, you decided to lie, by omission? Let me think you were safe when you're the exact opposite. I told myself I'd tell you eventually. When you trusted me more. When I figured out how to explain it without losing you. You've lost me anyway. The words hit him visibly. He flinched like I'd struck him. Arya, please. Let me make this right.
How? How do you make this right?
The police think I'm involved in your organization. Your enemies will think I'm leverage. I'm in danger because I had coffee with you. I'll protect. I'd just come from my sister's school. Parent-teacher conference. Some kid's father threatened her because she failed his son for cheating. Said he knew who I was. Said I should tell her to change the grade or there'd be consequences. His voice went rough. She's a teacher. She loves those kids. And because of me, because of what I am, she gets threatened. So, yeah, I got on that plane angry and defeated and not caring about rules. Then you showed up and reminded me that strength doesn't have to come with cruelty. That someone could stand up to me without fear. And I wanted that. Wanted to be around someone who wasn't afraid. I finally turned back. You want to know what strength really looks like? It's walking away from people who put you in danger, even when part of you wants to stay. Don't do this. I have to. For me.
His jaw tightened.
Something shifted in his expression. The vulnerability shuttering closed again. If that's what you want, it is. Then I'll leave you alone. But Arya? You're not safe just because you walk away from me.
Morrison was right about that. You've been seen with me.
That makes you a target whether we keep talking or not. The threat lurked underneath the words. Not from him, but from his world. Then give me something. Information. Whatever Morrison needs to close his case and make this go away. I can't do that. Can't or won't.
Both.
I talk to the police. Lucia becomes a target. I have enemies who'd use her to get to me. I stay quiet. She stays safe. That's the math. So, I'm just collateral damage.
No.
You're someone I'll make sure stays protected even if you hate me for it. I don't want her protection. I want my normal life back.
I know.
I'm sorry I took that from you. He stepped back, creating distance. I meant what I said about everything else. About you being brave. About wanting to understand beauty again. About caring. That wasn't strategy. That was real. It doesn't matter if it was real. It's still broken.
Yeah.
It is. We stood there in painful silence. Two people who'd almost had something good before reality destroyed it. Goodbye, Dante.
Goodbye, Aria.
I walked back to my car.
Got in.
Drove out of the parking lot without looking back. Dad followed me home. Came inside.
Made tea while I sat on my couch and stared at nothing.
You did the right thing, he said. Then why does it feel so wrong? Because you're grieving. Not just him. The idea of him. The hope that you could trust someone again, and it would work out. I'm so tired of grieving, Dad. I know, sweetheart. I know. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Miss Chun, this is Detective Morrison. I heard you met with Moretti today. That was dangerous. How did you know? We're watching him, which means we saw you too. I told you to cut contact. I needed answers. Did you get them? He's not going to cooperate with your investigation. Says it would put his sister in danger. A long pause. That's actually true. Lucia Moretti is clean. Teaches 3rd grade. Has no involvement in her brother's business. But she's his only weakness. He's right to be worried. So, what happens now? Now you stay away from him. Let's do our job. Eventually we'll have enough to move on him without cooperation.
And me?
Am I still in danger? Honestly, I don't know. Word's probably out that you matter to him. That makes you interesting to his enemies. My advice? Vary your routine. Stay in public places. Be aware of your surroundings. He hung up. I looked at Dad. He basically just told me I'm a target. Then we adjust. You stay here for a while. I'll teach you some new defensive techniques. Update what I taught you before. You'll be fine. Will I, though? Dad pulled me into a hug. The kind that had made me feel safe since I was 6 years old. You survived, Preston. You survived losing your mom. You'll survive this too. Because you're Thomas Chen's daughter, and we don't break easy. I wanted to believe him. But that night, lying in Dad's guest room, staring at the ceiling, all I could think about was Dante's face when I said goodbye. The resignation. The pain. The acceptance. Like he'd expected it all along. Like he'd known from the start this was how it would end. And underneath all my anger and fear and betrayal, a small voice whispered that maybe I'd just walked away from the only person who'd actually seen me completely. I told that voice to shut up. It didn't listen. 3 days later, everything got worse. I was working a flight to Portland. Normal route. Normal passengers. Nothing unusual. Until I got to the hotel and found my room had been broken into. Nothing stolen. Nothing destroyed. Just a single rose on my pillow. Black. And a note in unfamiliar handwriting. He can't protect you anymore. We'll be in touch. I called Dad immediately. Then Morrison. Then, against every bit of logic, I pulled up Dante's number. My finger hovered over the call button. Every rational thought screamed not to. I'd cut him off. Walked away. Let him go. But someone had broken into my hotel room. Left a threat. Knew where I was. I pressed call. He answered on the first ring.
Aria.
Just hearing his voice cracked something open inside me. I need help. Where are you? I told him. Don't leave the room. Don't open the door for anyone. I'm 20 minutes away. How are you 20 minutes away? I'm in Portland. Because I've had someone watching you since you walked away. Making sure you were safe. You've been stalking me? I've been protecting you. There's a difference. Stay put. I'm coming. He hung up. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the black rose, and realized with absolute clarity that my life had just changed forever. The catastrophe wasn't meeting Dante. It was walking away from him thinking that would keep me safe. His world had already swallowed me whole. Now the only question was whether I'd survive it. Dante arrived in 18 minutes. I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps. Then his voice, low and controlled. "It's me." I opened the door and he stepped inside, eyes immediately scanning the room. 2 men flanked him in the hallway. Large. Alert. The kind of people who looked like they knew 17 ways to hurt someone. "Stay outside," Dante told them. "No one gets near this room." They nodded and took positions on either side of the door. Dante closed us inside, and his entire demeanor shifted. The controlled crime boss exterior cracked. "Are you hurt?"
No.
"Just scared." He moved to the bed, examined the rose without touching it, pulled out his phone and took photos of everything. The note, the disturbed bedspread, the angle of the curtains. "This is Sergey's work. The black rose is his signature." "Who's Sergey?" "Head of the Volkov family. Russian operation based in Vancouver, but they've been trying to expand into Seattle for 3 years. I've blocked them at every turn." He looked at me, something dark and furious in his eyes. "They're using you to get to me." Morrison said I was a target. I thought he was exaggerating. Morrison doesn't exaggerate. He's a good cop.
Honest.
Which is rare in this city. Dante ran his hand through his hair, the controlled facade slipping further. "I should have assigned protection immediately. I thought giving you space meant letting you be free of this. I was wrong. What do they want? Me out of the way. My territory. My operations. With me gone, there's a power vacuum. Sergey fills it. So this is about business. Everything is about business in my world, including threats against people I care about." The last part came out raw, unguarded. I sat down on the chair near the window, legs shaking. "What happens now?" "Now I make sure you're safe. Then I deal with Sergey." "Deal with him how?" He met my eyes. "Do you really want that answer?" I thought about it, about what dealing with threats probably meant in his world.
No.
"I don't." "Smart." He made a call, spoke in rapid Italian. I caught maybe every 5th word. My mom had tried to teach me some basics when I was young, but most of it was lost. When he hung up, he turned back to me. "I'm moving you. Different hotel. Different name. 2 guards outside your door at all times. When you fly, you'll have someone on the plane. You won't see them, but they'll be there." I can't live like this. I have a job. A life. I know. But temporary security is better than a permanent threat.
He paused.
Unless you want to trust Morrison's protection, go into some kind of witness situation. I'm not a witness to anything.
Exactly.
Which means their resources for you will be limited. Mine aren't. I hated that he was right. Hated that I needed him. Hated that 3 days ago, I'd walked away thinking that would solve everything. "Why?" I asked. "Why help me?" "I told you it was over. I chose to walk away. Because the moment I sat down next to you on that first flight, the moment you looked at me like I was just a person, you became something important to me. That doesn't stop just because you're smart enough to keep your distance. This isn't fair. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. And I'm sorrier than you'll ever understand." He moved toward the door. "Pack your things. We're leaving in 5 minutes. Where are we going?" "Somewhere Sergey won't think to look." 20 minutes later, I was in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows. One of Dante's men drove. The other sat passenger seat. Dante sat next to me, phone constantly buzzing with messages he answered in clipped Italian. "Where are we going?" I asked again. "My sister's place." Sergey knows about Lucia, but he also knows she's completely off limits. Neutrality rules. You go after someone's family who isn't involved in the business. Every organization in the city turns on you. It's the one line no one crosses. So I'm safe there. Safer. No place is completely safe right now. We drove for 40 minutes. Out of downtown Portland, into suburbs that looked peaceful and normal. Soccer fields. Coffee shops. The kind of neighborhood where people raised kids and complained about property taxes. Lucia's house was a small craftsman bungalow. Flower boxes in the windows. Colorful garden gnomes on the porch. So far removed from Dante's world it felt surreal. Lucia opened the door before we knocked. She was maybe 30. Warm brown eyes. Dark hair in a messy bun. Paint stains on her jeans. Dante. She hugged him tight. You look terrible. I feel terrible. He gestured to me. This is Aria. The one I told you about. Lucia's eyes widened. The flight attendant. The one who made you remember music exists. He told you about me? He tells me everything, even when I wish he wouldn't. She smiled and pulled me into a hug.
Come in.
You look like you could use tea, and something stronger than tea. The house was exactly what I'd expected from a third-grade teacher. Colorful artwork on the walls. Bookshelves overflowing. A piano in the corner covered in framed photos. Comfortable furniture that prioritized function over style. It felt like home. Lucia made tea while Dante disappeared to make calls. I sat at her kitchen table and tried to process the last 3 hours. He's terrified, Lucia said, setting a mug in front of me. I haven't seen him this scared since our parents died. Scared? He seems completely in control. That's his mask. Underneath it, he's panicking. You matter to him. A lot. And in our world, caring about someone is the most dangerous thing you can do. I don't understand this world. Any of it. Neither do I really. And I grew up in it. She sat down across from me. But I know my brother. He's not a good man by most definitions. He's done things that would horrify you. But he's trying. Trying to be better than our father was. Trying to protect people instead of just controlling them. The police say he runs protection rackets. He does. But do you know what happened to those businesses before Dante took over? Worse people controlled them. Violent people. Our father's people. Dante transitioned everything. Made deals. Offered real security instead of extortion. That's still illegal. It is. But it's also reality. These systems exist, whether we like them or not. Someone's going to run them. At least Dante has lines he won't cross. I wanted to argue. To say that didn't make it okay. But I was too tired and scared to debate ethics. Dante came back in. Sergei's people have been asking questions about you for 2 weeks. Where you live. Your schedule. Your dad. My stomach dropped. My dad.
He's fine.
I have people watching him too. But they know about him. About his training background. They're assessing threats. I need to call him. Already done. He knows you're safe. Knows I'm handling this. How did you even get his number? Dante had the grace to look slightly guilty. I may have looked into your background after we started having coffee. Wanted to make sure I wasn't putting you in danger just by being around you. That's an invasion of privacy. It is. Add it to the list of things I'm sorry for. He sat down, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Sergei will make contact soon. Probably with demands. Territory exchange. Money. Something. And if you don't give him what he wants, then he escalates. Uses you as leverage. Forces my hand. So give him what he wants. Problem solved. It's not that simple. I give in to Sergei, I look weak. Every other organization in the city will test me. More people get hurt, including Lucia. His sister reached over and squeezed his hand. We've been through worse. Not with her involved.
He looked at me.
Every other threat I've faced, every challenge to my authority, I could handle it because I only had to protect Lucia. Now there's you. And they know it. I didn't ask to be your weakness. I know. That's what makes it worse. You didn't choose this. I brought it to your door because I was selfish enough to want something real. The pain in his voice cracked something inside me. Anger and fear, and something else I didn't want to name. How do we fix this? I asked. We don't. I do. You stay here with Lucia. Stay safe. Let me handle Sergei. And then what? I hide forever? Give up my job, my life, my dad? Become someone who needs armed guards everywhere.
No.
Then I end the threat permanently, and you get to go back to your life. The way he said permanently made my skin crawl. You're going to kill him. I'm going to do what's necessary to keep you safe. Don't kill someone because of me. I can't live with that. You won't have to.
It'll be on me.
All of it. That's not how guilt works, Dante. Lucia stood up. I'm going to give you two some privacy. Guest room is upstairs. Second door on the left. Clean towels in the bathroom. She kissed Dante's cheek. Don't do anything stupid, big brother. Too late for that. When she was gone, silence settled heavy between us. I'm sorry, Dante said finally. For all of it. For lying about who I am. For putting you in danger. For making you matter to me when I had no right to let that happen. Why did you? I asked. You knew this would end badly. Why pursue it? He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because for 3 weeks, when I was with you, I got to be just Dante. Not Dante Moretti. Not the boss. Not my father's legacy. Just a man talking to a woman about music and pain and healing. Do you know how intoxicating that is? To be seen as human? I do, actually. That's exactly how you made me feel. Like someone saw past the damage Preston left and recognized the person underneath. Then you understand why I couldn't walk away.
Ida.
But that doesn't make this okay. I know. I stood up, needing to move. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. What if I disappeared? Left Seattle. Changed my name. Started over somewhere new. They'd find you. Sergey has resources across 3 countries. And running means you're always looking over your shoulder. That's not living. Neither is this.
No.
It's not.
He stood too.
But it's temporary.
I promise you that.
This situation ends. One way or another. How can you promise that? Because I've been navigating this world since I was 29. I know how to end threats. I just usually don't care enough about the collateral to hesitate. He stepped closer. Not touching. Just present. You're not collateral. You're the first thing I've cared about protecting in years. The intensity in his eyes should have scared me. Maybe it did. But it also made me feel something I'd been trying to ignore since the moment I walked away from him. Safe. Despite everything. Despite the danger and the lies and the impossible situation. When I was with him, I felt safe. That realization terrified me more than Sergey's threats. I should sleep, I said. Figure this out with a clear head tomorrow. Good idea. I'll be downstairs if you need anything. You're staying? I'm not leaving you unprotected. Lucia has a couch? Lucia has a piano bench. I'll be fine. I started toward the stairs, then stopped. Dante. Yeah. Thank you. For coming when I called. For helping even though I pushed you away. You don't have to thank me for caring about whether you live or die, Arya. That's baseline human decency. In your world, I'm not sure baseline decency exists. It does. It's just buried under survival instinct and bad choices. He smiled sadly. Sleep well. Tomorrow we start fixing this. I went upstairs to Lucia's guest room. It was painted soft blue with white curtains. A bookshelf full of young adult novels. A desk with art supplies scattered across it. Normal. Safe. Everything Dante's world wasn't. I texted Dad that I was okay. Gave him minimal details. Promised to call tomorrow. Then I lay in that comfortable bed in that peaceful house and tried to figure out how my life had become a thriller I never asked to star in. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against every instinct, I opened the message. A photo. Me walking into Lucia's house 2 hours ago. Taken from across the street. Below it. Pretty neighborhood. Would be a shame if something happened to it. Tell Dante we'll be in touch. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. They'd followed us. They knew where I was.
Knew Lucia was involved now.
I took the phone downstairs. Dante was sitting in the dark living room, laptop open, face illuminated by the blue glow. They know I'm here. I showed him the message. His expression went cold. Dangerous. The man I'd met on the plane disappeared completely. This was the mob boss. The killer. The thing he'd been trying to hide from me. Get Lucia. We're moving.
Now.
Moving where? Somewhere they'll never think to look. Somewhere I swore I'd never go back to. He made calls while I ran upstairs to wake Lucia. She took one look at my face and started packing without questions. 20 minutes later, we were in 2 cars. Lucia driving one.
Dante driving the other with me in the passenger seat.
Where are we going?
I asked.
My father's estate. 40 minutes outside the city. No one's been there since he died. It's locked down.
Secure.
Off everyone's radar. Why don't you use it? Because it holds every bad memory of my childhood. Because I swore when I took over that I'd never become him. Because going back there feels like admitting I failed at being different. The vulnerability in that confession hit me hard. You're not your father, I said. Tell that to the people I've hurt. The deals I've made. The compromises I've accepted to keep Lucia safe. You're protecting people. Your father destroyed them. That's the difference. Is it? Or is that just what I tell myself to sleep at night? We drove in silence after that. Out of Portland. Into dark country roads. Trees crowding on both sides.
No streetlights.
No other cars. Just us and the night, and the weight of everything broken between us. The estate appeared suddenly. Huge iron gates. Stone walls. A driveway that stretched for what felt like miles. Dante entered a code. The gates swung open. The house beyond was massive. 3 stories of dark stone and Gothic architecture. Like something out of a horror movie. Beautiful and terrifying. This is where you grew up?
I asked.
This is where I survived growing up. There's a difference. We parked. Lucia's car pulled in behind us. Dante's security team arrived third. 6 men total. All armed. All watching the perimeter. Inside, the house was cold. Dusty. Furniture covered in white sheets. Art on the walls depicting violence in classical style. Every room echoed. Guest wing is east side. Dante told everyone. Pick rooms. Get settled. We'll do a full security briefing in an hour. Lucia hugged me. I'm going to make coffee. Pretty sure we're all going to need it. I followed Dante up a grand staircase. Down a hallway lined with portraits of stern-looking men who all shared his dark eyes. Your family? I asked. 4 generations of Moretus. All dead now except me and Lucia. Most died violently. Is that supposed to be comforting?
No.
It's supposed to be honest. He stopped at a door. This was my mother's room. It's the safest in the house. Reinforced walls. Bulletproof windows. Multiple exits. You'll stay here. He opened the door to reveal a surprisingly beautiful room. Soft colors. Delicate furniture. Completely different from the rest of the house. Your mother had good taste. She was the only soft thing in this entire place. When she died, my father removed every trace of her from his life. But he couldn't bring himself to change this room. So it stayed. A shrine to the one person who made him human. How old were you when she died? 15. Lucia was 10.
Car accident.
Except it probably wasn't an accident. My father had enemies. She was collateral. The word hit different now. Collateral. People who got hurt just for being connected to the wrong person. Like me. I'm sorry, I said. Me too. He moved to leave. Get some rest. I'll have someone bring up your bag from the car. Dante. He stopped in the doorway. We're going to get through this, right? Somehow. He looked at me with eyes that held too much sorrow. I'm going to make sure you get through this. Whatever it takes. What about you? I stopped mattering a long time ago. He left before I could argue. I sat on the edge of his mother's bed in his dead father's house surrounded by armed guards because a Russian mobster wanted leverage against a man I'd tried to walk away from. My phone buzzed.
Dad.
Are you really okay? I got a visit from some of Dante's people. They're outside my house. Said it's protective. Should I be worried?
Yes. But not about them.
About the people they're protecting you from. Arya, what have you gotten into? Nothing I chose. Everything I'm trying to survive. Do you trust him, Dante? I thought about that question.
Really thought about it.
I trust that he'll do whatever it takes to keep me safe, even if it destroys him. That's not the same as trusting him. I know, Dad, but it's all I have right now. We talked for a few more minutes. He reminded me I was strong, that I'd survived worse,
that he believed in me.
When we hung up, I walked to the window, looked out at dark grounds. Security lights illuminating patches of lawn. Men patrolling with weapons. This was my life now. At least until Dante ended the threat. Or the threat ended him. Or I figured out how to end all of this myself. Because I was done being collateral. Done being the weakness. Done being something that needed protecting. Tomorrow, I'd start figuring out how to fight back. Tonight, I just needed to survive. I woke up to the sound of gunshots. Not close enough to be inside the house, but close enough that the windows rattled. My eyes snapped open in the dark. For one disoriented second, I thought I was back in Preston's apartment, that the sound was him slamming doors again. Then reality slammed into me harder than any door ever had. More shots.
Rapid.
Controlled. Then silence. I grabbed my phone. 4:17 a.m. No signal. Of course the estate was jammed. Dante's people wouldn't want anyone calling out during an attack. I pulled on jeans and the hoodie I'd left on the chair and opened the bedroom door quietly. The hallway was pitch black except for the red glow of an exit sign at the far end. I moved toward the grand staircase on bare feet, heart hammering so loud I was sure someone would hear it. Halfway down I saw him. Dante stood at the bottom of the stairs in nothing on but sweatpants and a shoulder holster, gun in his hand, blood running down the left side of his face from a cut at his hairline. He looked up when he heard me. "Get back upstairs," he said, voice low and lethal. "What's happening?" "They hit the east gate. Testing defenses. We pushed them back. For now." He moved toward me like he was going to physically carry me back to the room, but I held up a hand. "Stop treating me like glass. Tell me the truth."
He stopped.
Wiped blood from his eye with the back of his wrist. "Sergei sent 20 men. We killed 4. Took 2 alive. The rest ran. They'll be back tonight with more. 20 men. For me. Because of me." I felt the floor tilt under my feet. This is insane. This is war, Arya. And you're the reason it started. The words hit harder than any slap Preston ever gave me. Because they were true. I walked past him toward the front doors. He caught my arm. "Where are you going?" "To end this. You're not leaving this house." I looked at the grip on my arm, then at his face. "Let go of me." He did. Instantly. I kept walking. He followed. We ended up in what used to be a library, huge room, books floor to ceiling, massive oak table in the center. Lucia was already there, pale but steady, pouring coffee with shaking hands. 3 of Dante's men stood around a laptop showing security feeds. On the table lay the 2 prisoners. Zip-tied, gagged, faces swollen. One of them had a black rose tattoo on his neck. Sergei's mark. Dante spoke in Italian too fast for me to follow. One of the men answered. Dante's face went completely blank the way it did when he was furious beyond feeling.
He turned to me.
"They were ordered to take you alive. Sergei wants you as a message. He's planning to send me pieces until I give him what he wants." Lucia made a small wounded sound. I stared at the prisoners, at the blood on the floor, at Dante's blood still dripping. And something inside me snapped. Not fear.
Rage.
Pure, clean, righteous rage. I walked to the table, picked up the knife one of the guards had been using to cut zip ties, and pressed it against the throat of the man with the rose tattoo. "Tell Sergei the message goes both ways," I said in a voice I didn't recognize as mine. "He touches me or anyone I love, I will cut his empire out from under him one piece at a time. Starting with every soldier who carries his mark." The man's eyes went wide. He tried to shake his head, but the blade bit skin. A thin line of blood appeared. Dante didn't stop me. Lucia didn't stop me. Nobody moved. I leaned closer. You tell him Arya Chin doesn't hide. She fights. And if he wants to play this game, I'll play dirtier. I pulled the knife away and looked at Dante. Let them go. Let them run back to Sergei and deliver that message personally. He stared at me for a long second, then nodded once. The prisoners were dragged out. I heard an engine start, tires on gravel, then nothing. Lucia handed me coffee. My hand didn't shake. Not once. Dante watched me like he was seeing me for the first time. You just declared war on the Volkov family, he said quietly.
No, Ian Sue.
I just made sure they know I'm not leverage. I'm the threat. Something shifted in his expression. Respect.
Fear. Pride.
All three at once. He stepped close, cupped my face with hands that still had blood on them, and rested his forehead against mine. I was wrong, he whispered. You're not my weakness. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I let him hold me for 5 seconds. Then I stepped back. Good. Because I'm done hiding in your dead father's house.
I want in.
All the way.
Arya.
I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you. You want to end this? We end it together. Or I walk out that gate right now and handle it myself. He searched my face. Saw I meant every word. Finally, he nodded.
Together.
The shift was immediate. Over the next 6 hours, the house transformed from a mausoleum into a war room. Maps on the dining table. Weapons cleaned and loaded. Burner phones passed out. Lucia hacked into city traffic cameras. Turns out the elementary school teacher had taught herself coding as a teenager and never stopped. Dante's men brought in files, photos, schedules. I learned more about organized crime in one morning than I ever wanted to know. Sergei Volkov, 42, ex-Russian military, ruthless even by mob standards. Obsessed with legacy. No children. No family he cared about. Only power. His weakness?
Pride.
He believed he was untouchable. We were going to prove him wrong. By noon we had a plan. I would be the bait. Not helpless bait. Armed, wired, protected bait. Dante hated it. Fought me on it for an hour. But I laid it out cold. They want me alive. That's the only reason I'm still breathing.
Use that. Set the meeting.
I walk in, you walk in behind me. We end this tonight. He finally agreed because there was no other way to force Sergei's hand. At 8 p.m., I stood in the marble foyer, wearing black jeans, boots, and a leather jacket Dante's guy had brought in my size. My hair was pulled back tight. Knife strapped to my thigh. Gun in a shoulder holster under the jacket. Wire taped between my breasts. Dante adjusted the wire himself, hands careful, clinical. His eyes stayed on the task, but I felt the tremor in his fingers. You can still back out, he said.
No.
I can't. He met my eyes. If anything goes wrong. It won't. He kissed me then. Not soft. Not gentle. Like a man who thought it might be the last time. I kissed him back the same way. We drove in 3 cars. I rode with Dante. Lucia stayed behind with 4 guards and orders to disappear if things went bad. The meeting was set for an abandoned warehouse on the docks. Neutral ground.
No colors.
No weapons past the door. Rules everyone knew nobody would follow. Sergei waited inside with 8 men. Dante walked in with 6. I walked in the middle. Sergei was shorter than I expected.
Stocky.
Blonde hair going gray. Ice blue eyes. Expensive suit. He smiled when he saw me like a shark smelling blood. Miss Chen.
So brave.
Or so stupid. Hard to tell. I smiled back. I brought you a gift. I reached into my jacket slowly. His men tensed. I pulled out the black rose the intruder had left on my pillow in Portland. Held it up. Then I snapped the stem and dropped the flower on the concrete between us. Next time you send flowers, pick a color that doesn't scream try-hard villain. Sergei laughed. Actually laughed. Dante, where did you find this one? I like her. Dante didn't answer. Sergei turned to me. Here is how this works. You come with me. Dante gives me the South Corridor and the port contracts. You live. You stay happy and healthy as my guest. He refuses. He shrugged. I start sending him fingers. Maybe ears. Eventually heart, when I get bored. I stepped forward. Dante's hand brushed my back, warning. I ignored it. Here's how this actually works, I said. You leave Seattle tonight. You never come back. You never speak my name again. You do that, you live. Sergey looked amused. And if I say no? I smiled the smile Dad taught me, the one that came right before a knockout punch. Then you die here. He laughed again. Louder. Then his face changed. Because every screen in the warehouse, every security monitor, every phone suddenly lit up with the same image of Sergey's private office. His home. His vault. Live feed. Lucia's voice came through hidden speakers. Hello, Sergey. While you've been playing with my brother's girlfriend, I've been playing with your money. All of it. Right now it's being wired to accounts you will never find. You have about 60 seconds before you are completely broke. Sergey's men shifted. Looked at him. I pulled the gun from under my jacket. Dante's men did the same. Sergey went very still. You think this ends with money? No, I said. It ends with this. I pulled the trigger. The bullet hit the concrete at his feet. Every man in the room flinched. I stepped over the rows. Walked until the barrel of my gun pressed under Sergey's chin. I'm not leverage, I said quietly. I'm the consequence. For the first time, Sergey looked afraid. Dante spoke behind me, voice calm. New deal. You leave the Northwest. Tonight. You stay gone. Your money stays gone. You ever come back, we finish this conversation with bullets instead of words. Sergey looked from me to Dante to the screens, still showing his empty accounts. He nodded once. I lowered the gun. We walked out. No one stopped us. In the car, Dante didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then he pulled over on a dark road, turned to me and said, You just took everything from a man who has spent 20 years building it. Good. You scared the hell out of me. Good. He kissed me again. Harder this time. Like gratitude and terror and love all mixed together. When we broke apart, he said, Marry me. I laughed. Actually laughed in the middle of all of it. No. He blinked. Not like this, I said. Not because you're relieved I'm alive. Not because I just held a gun to a mobster's head. When you ask because you can't imagine another day without me, ask again. I'll say yes. He rested his head against the steering wheel and laughed too. Shaky. Relieved. Alive. We drove back to the estate at dawn. Lucia met us at the door holding a bottle of champagne and wearing the biggest grin I'd ever seen. You crazy people actually did it, she said. We did, I answered. She hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. Later, after showers and sleep and the kind of silence that comes after surviving something impossible, Dante found me in his mother's room. He stood in the doorway holding a small velvet box. Inside was a ring. Simple. Platinum band with a single diamond. Nothing flashy. Perfect. I can't imagine another day without you, he said. I took the ring. Slipped it on my finger. Yes. He kissed me soft this time. Like a promise. Outside, the sun came up over the grounds where men had died hours before. Inside, two broken people started becoming whole. But that wasn't the end. That was just the middle. Because the real devastation wasn't Sergey. It was what came after. And it was coming fast. We thought we had won. For exactly 11 days we lived like normal people. Dante shut down half his operations overnight. Sold warehouses. Dissolved crews. Paid people off to disappear. He told everyone he was going legitimate. I moved into a new apartment he bought under a trust, no connection to him on paper. I went back to flying. Short routes. Seattle to Denver. Seattle to Phoenix. I wore the ring on a chain under my uniform, so no one asked questions. We met in hotel rooms between my layovers. We cooked actual meals in the new apartment. We laughed. We made love, like the world wasn't still burning around us. For 11 days we pretended the story had ended with Sergey broke and running. Then the first domino fell. I was working the last flight of a 4-day trip, red-eye from Las Vegas to Seattle, when the captain came over the intercom 15 minutes before landing. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been asked to hold on the tarmac after arrival. Law enforcement needs to speak with some passengers. Nothing to worry about. My stomach dropped. I looked out the galley window as we taxied. 6 unmarked SUVs surrounded the plane. Red and blue lights flashing against the rain. FBI. Not local PD. They boarded before the jet bridge even connected.
Arya Chen.
The lead agent showed credentials. You're coming with us. Passengers stared. Phones came out. Someone was already live streaming. I didn't fight.
I knew what this looked like.
They cuffed me in front of everyone. The charge: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and interstate transportation of stolen property. All tied to the money Lucia had moved out of Sergei's accounts. They took my phone, my crew bag, my ring necklace, evidence. They put me in an interrogation room at the federal building downtown and left me there for 9 hours. No lawyer, no phone call, just me and a metal table and the growing certainty that everything was collapsing. At hour 10, Detective Morrison walked in. He looked exhausted. You lied to me, I said before he could speak. I didn't know, he answered. Feds kept me out of the loop. They've been building a RICO case on Dante for 18 months. The Sergei thing just handed them probable cause. Where is he? Arrested 2 hours ago. Same charges. Plus a few extras.
Morrison sat down.
Arya, they have everything. The warehouse meat. The money transfers. Audio from the wire you wore. They're calling it the largest single-day theft in organized crime history. They want Dante for life. I closed my eyes. What do they want from me? Testify against him. Full cooperation. They'll give you immunity and witness protection. And if I don't, you go down with him. 20 years minimum. I laughed. It came out broken. So my choices are betray the man I love or lose my entire life. Morrison didn't answer. He didn't have to. They moved me to a holding cell. Concrete bench. Stainless toilet.
No windows.
I sat there for 2 days while my lawyer, someone Dante's remaining people found, tried to get me out. Bail was denied. Flight risk. On day 3 they brought me to the courthouse in chains for arraignment. That's when I saw Dante. He was in the holding pen across the aisle. Orange jumpsuit. Hands cuffed to his waist. Face bruised like he hadn't gone quietly. Our eyes met. He mouthed 2 words, I'm sorry. I shook my head. Don't be. The judge read the charges. The prosecutor painted us as Bonnie and Clyde with a body count. Dante pleaded not guilty. I did the same. They took him first. I watched federal marshals lead him away and felt my heart go with him. That night in my cell, I got a visit from a public defender I'd never met before. She slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a single photograph.
Dad.
Tied to a chair in his own kitchen. Mouth gagged, eyes wide with fear. On the back, written in red ink. Testify, and he dies. Stay silent, and we all walk. No signature needed. I knew who sent it. Sergei wasn't broke. He'd played us. The money Lucia moved had been bait. A shell account. Sergei let us think we'd ruined him, so we would drop our guard. Then he flipped the script and fed everything to the feds. Now he had Dante in a cage, and me choosing between my father's life and the man I loved. I cried for the first time since the arrest. Hard, ugly, silent sobs that hurt my ribs. Because there was no good choice. If I testified, Dad died, and Dante went away forever. If I stayed silent, I went to prison for 20 years and Sergei still might kill Dad just to twist the knife. Either way, I lost everything. 2 days later, they transferred me to MDC Seattle-Tacoma, Federal Detention Center. Women's Wing. I walked into the common area, and every conversation stopped. I was fresh meat with a famous boyfriend. Target on my back immediately. That night in the showers, 3 women cornered me. One had a shank made from a toothbrush. I fought. Dad's training plus pure desperation. I broke one nose, dislocated another shoulder, took the shank and held it to the 3rd woman's throat until guards pulled me off. Solitary for 30 days. Darkness. Concrete. Meals through a slot. I lost track of time. Lost weight. Lost hope. The only thing that kept me breathing was knowing Dad was still alive for now. On day 28 of solitary, they pull me out for a legal visit. It was Dante. Separated by glass. Phones on both sides. He looked worse than me. Eyes hollow. New tattoos on his knuckles. Prison ink that told me he'd already pledged protection inside. "They're offering me life with no parole," he said without greeting. "I take it. Charges against you disappear. Your dad walks free tonight." I stared at him. "You do that?" I already told them yes. "No," my voice cracked. "I won't let you. It's done, Arya. Papers are signed. I just wanted to see you one last time." Tears ran down my face. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Sergei played the long game, and he won. This is the only move left. I pressed my hand to the glass. He put his up to match. "I love you," I said. "I know. That's why I'm doing this." Guards moved in to take him. I screamed his name until my throat bled. They dragged me back to solitary. That night I sat in the dark and made a decision. I was done losing people I loved. I was done being collateral. I was going to burn Sergei's entire world to the ground, even if it meant becoming the monster to do it. Because some fires don't care what they destroy as long as the person who started them finally feels the flames. And I was ready to light the match. The darkness in solitary didn't feel dark after a while. It felt like a womb. I stopped fighting it. I let it hold me while I became something new. I counted everything. The guard with the limp took exactly 19 steps from the control booth to my door. The camera in the corner swept left to right every 11.4 seconds. Meal trays came at 6:12 a.m., 11:48 a.m., and 5:05 p.m. without fail. I scratched a tiny notch into the wall with a plastic spoon I'd palmed the day they took my shoelaces. 41 marks. 41 days since Dante signed his life away so I could keep mine. On day 39 the spoon finally bent far enough to snap. I kept the sharp half. That same night the corrections officer, who always brought breakfast, lingered half a second longer than usual. Her name tag read Ramirez. She slid the tray through the slot, and under the roll was a folded square of paper no bigger than a postage stamp. Laundry tunnel. Tuesday 4:10 a.m. Trust the debt.
L.
I ate the note with the roll, so the camera wouldn't see.
Tuesday.
I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bunk in the orange jumpsuit that hung off me now and waited for the lights to flicker twice. At 4:07 a.m. they did. At 4:09, I heard the soft squeak of rubber wheels on concrete. At 4:10 the laundry cart stopped in front of my door. The woman pushing it was Inez Morales, the same one whose shoulder I'd popped out of socket in the shower fight 6 weeks earlier. She owed me her life twice over now. She slid a key into my lock without a word. I stripped the jumpsuit, folded it neat the way they taught us, and pulled on the spare corrections officer uniform folded in the bottom of the cart. It smelled like bleach and someone else's fear. Inez opened the body bag already inside the cart. The woman in it had died of an overdose 2 hours earlier. Cold. Heavy. Real. I climbed in beside her, pressed my face into the plastic so I could breathe, and pulled the zipper up from the inside. The cart started moving. 19 steps to the first checkpoint. I heard Ramirez's voice, bored and tired. Early pickup. New girl threw up all over herself. Laughter.
Keys.
Gate rolling open. Second checkpoint. Same story. Third checkpoint the guard actually looked inside the bag. I held my breath until my lungs burned. He saw what he expected to see and waved us through. At 4:28 a.m., the cart rolled into the staff parking lot. Cold rain hit my face like needles when Inez unzipped the bag. Dad was there, engine running, headlights off. He didn't say a word, just opened the back door and helped me in like I weighed nothing. I shook the whole drive. Not from cold. From everything catching up. We drove east for 6 hours straight.
No stops.
Dad had a thermos of coffee and a blanket. He wrapped it around me without asking. "You hungry?" I shook my head. "You gonna tell me how you got out?" "Later." He nodded. That was enough. We met Lucia at a cabin outside Spokane just after noon. She ran out the door before the car even stopped, threw her arms around me, and sobbed into my hair. "You're so thin," she kept saying. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." I held her until she stopped shaking. Inside smelled like pine and gun oil and fresh coffee. Maps covered the kitchen table. Burner phones in a row. 3 rifles leaning in the corner like they belonged there. Lucia handed me a plate of eggs and toast. I ate because my body needed it, not because I tasted anything. Then she slid a burner across the table.
"He won't talk to me," she said.
He hung up twice. Maybe he'll take your call. I dialed the number she gave me. It rang twice. "This is Moretti." His voice was flat, prison flat, like joy had been beaten out of it. "It's me." Silence, so complete I thought the line went dead. "I'm out." I heard him exhale like someone punched him in the chest. "Get on a plane," he said, rough. "Go somewhere they'll never find you." That was the deal. There is no deal anymore. I'm not leaving you in a box. You don't get it. I'm done. I signed the papers. They're transferring me to USP Florence next week. Life.
No parole.
You run, you live. That's the only win left. I'm not running.
Aria.
I'm coming for you. For both of us. I hung up before he could argue. Dad watched me from across the table, arms crossed. "You sure about this, sweetheart?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He nodded once, slow. "Then we do it your way." We had 48 hours before the feds admitted to the world they'd lost me. 72 before every agency in North America had my face on every screen. We used every minute. Lucia spent 14 hours a day on the dark web buying information, selling lies, building the myth that I was about to resurface, rich, untouchable, and flaunting it. Dad turned the basement into a shooting range and made me run drills until my hands bled. I slept 4 hours a night, woke up reaching for weapons that weren't there yet, and went back to work. On the 3rd night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and cut my hair to my shoulders with kitchen scissors. The woman staring back looked like a stranger. Harder eyes. Sharper cheekbones. Mouth that didn't smile easy anymore.
Good.
Needed Sergei to see a trophy he couldn't resist. Needed the world to believe I was spoiled, cruel, and stupid with power. Needed Dante to believe I was safe long enough for me to burn everything down and pull him out of the ashes. On the 5th night, sat on the porch with Dad, cleaning a Glock I could now strip and reassemble in 19 seconds flat. "You remember when you were 8, he said, "and you asked me why I taught you how to fight instead of ballet like the other girls?" I remember. I told you the world will try to make you small. Your job is to refuse. I clicked the magazine home.
I'm refusing. He put his arm around me.
"I'm proud of you, Arya."
Terrified.
But proud. I leaned into him and let myself be his little girl for exactly 30 seconds. Then stood up and went inside to finish becoming the weapon we needed. We had 1 card left. Sergei thought he'd won. He thought Dante was buried forever, and I was broken. He was wrong on both counts. I looked at Dad and Lucia across the table littered with maps and burner phones and fake passports.
"For days," I said.
4 days until the biggest charity auction on the West Coast. I'm going to walk in wearing blood-red silk and every camera in the building is going to love me. Lucia grinned, fierce and bright. And then we make him choke on his own legend. Dad loaded a round into the chamber. Then we bring our boy home. I looked at the photo of Dante in the orange jumpsuit, eyes dead, and felt the rage settle into something pure and clean. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. This was love with teeth. I picked up the red dress hanging on the back of the door, ran my fingers over the silk, and smiled the smile Dad taught me right before a knockout punch. Sergei wanted a war? I was about to give him annihilation. And when the smoke cleared, Dante would walk out of that cage and into my arms, or I would burn the whole system down trying. There was no third option. I was done choosing between the people I love. From now on, I choose all of them, even if it costs me everything. Especially if it costs me everything. Because some love is worth becoming the monster. And I was ready. 4 days later, I walked into the Vancouver Convention Center like I was born to own rooms full of billionaires. The dress was blood-red silk, backless, slit to the top of my thigh. Diamonds at my throat, wrists, ears, all real, all borrowed from Lucia's grandmother's safe deposit box that no one had opened since 1998. My hair was swept up with a titanium clasp sharp enough to open an artery. The heels were 5 inches and steady because Dad had made me practice walking in them on gravel for 6 hours straight. I looked like money that had learned how to kill. Cameras loved me the second I stepped out of the black Maybach. Reporters screamed questions. Aria, are the rumors true? Are you engaged to Dante Moretti? Is it true you escaped federal custody? I gave them the smile I'd practiced in the mirror until it looked bored and untouchable. No comment, darlings. Buy something pretty tonight. Inside, the hall glittered. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, politicians and tech moguls and old money heiresses pretending they weren't terrified of me. I felt Sergei arrive before I saw him. The air shifted. Conversations dipped. He walked in with 12 men in custom suits, earpieces, eyes scanning like wolves. He spotted me across the room and smiled the slow smile of a man who thinks he's already won. I lifted my champagne in salute. He started toward me. That was the exact moment the lights dimmed for the charity presentation. Every screen in the hall, 20-foot projectors, phones, tablets, the digital auction boards, went black. Then they all lit up at once. The first image, Sergei at 22, standing over the smoking wreckage of the car that killed Dante's parents. Audio overlay, his own voice, recorded 2 months ago bragging to his lieutenant. Let the Americans lock Moretti for life. I gift-wrapped the evidence myself. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Next screen, bank records scrolling live. Hundreds of millions moving out of Sergei's hidden accounts into charitable trusts registered to orphanages in Ukraine, hospitals in Syria, women's shelters across North America. Every penny time-stamped, traceable, irreversible. Lucia's voice came through the hall's PA system, calm and sweet as poison. Good evening, Mr. Volkov. While you've been chasing ghosts, we've been cleaning house. You have approximately 43 seconds before you are officially penniless. Sergei's men reached for weapons. Every exit door slammed shut at the same moment. Canadian federal agents in tuxedos stepped out from behind ice sculptures, guns already drawn. I walked straight through the frozen crowd toward Sergei. People parted like I was radioactive. He stood in the middle of the marble floor, face draining of color, eyes darting for any way out that didn't exist. I stopped 5 feet away. You wanted the princess in the tower, I said, loud enough for every microphone in the room to catch it. Here I am. I reached into the slit of my dress and pulled out the tiny flash drive Lucia had sewn into the lining. Held it up between 2 fingers so the diamonds caught the light. Everything you built is on this drive. Every account. Every shell company. Every body you buried. Right now it's uploading to the FBI, Interpol, the Canadian Mounted Police, and 3 major news networks. In about 6 minutes, the entire world will know exactly who you are. Sergei's hand twitched toward the gun under his jacket. Dad's voice came through the microscopic earpiece I wore. He moves wrong. He dies on every camera in the building. Your call. I smiled at Sergei. You taught me something important, I said. You taught me that monsters only win when good people play by rules. Tonight the rules are mine. I stepped closer, close enough to smell his cologne and his fear. You put my father in a chair with a gag in his mouth. You put the man I love in a cage for the rest of his life. You made me choose between them. I leaned in until my lips almost touched his ear. I chose neither. I pulled back and nodded once. The screens changed again. Live feed from a federal courtroom in Seattle. Dante walking out of the building in street clothes, marshals shaking his hand, reporters screaming questions. The cheering underneath. All charges dropped. New evidence implicates Volkov in frame-up. Sergei made a sound like a wounded animal. I smiled the coldest smile I'd ever smiled. Checkmate. He lunged. Dad stepped out of the crowd, tuxedo, gray hair slicked back, looking every inch the proud father of the bride, and hit Sergei once in the solar plexus. Sergei dropped to his knees gasping. Federal agents swarmed. Sergei screamed my name the entire way out, voice cracking with rage and disbelief. I didn't flinch. I just turned to the nearest camera, the one broadcasting live to every major network, and spoke directly into the lens. For everyone who ever felt powerless, this is what happens when you stop asking permission to fight back. Then I walked out. The cold Vancouver night hit my face like freedom. U.S. Marshals were waiting exactly where we planned, lights flashing, cuffs ready. I lifted my wrists without being asked. The lead agent, a woman with kind eyes, whispered, "Hell of an exit line, Miss Chen." "Thank you, Agent Ruiz." They put me in the back of an SUV. I watched the convention center shrink in the rear window and felt nothing but relief. Sometimes Justice has to wear a red dress and 5-inch heels. Sometimes she has to smile while the world burns. I closed my eyes and let the cuffs bite my wrists. Worth it. Every single second. They kept me in a federal holding facility in Seattle for 48 hours.
No solitary this time.
A clean room with a real bed, a window that looked out on Puget Sound, and 3 meals that tasted like food. I slept 14 hours straight the first night and woke up crying because I didn't know where Dante was. On the third morning, the U.S. attorney walked in with a thick file and a look I'd never seen on a prosecutor before, something close to awe. She laid the file on the table. Sergei Volkov talked for 4 straight days. Names, dates, offshore accounts, bodies in concrete, bribes to 3 federal judges, the works. He gave us everything to avoid extradition to Russia, where half the people he betrayed are waiting with piano wire. In exchange for a black site prison in Europe and a new name, he buried his own empire and handed us the keys. She closed the file. "Your boyfriend's plea deal is dissolved at 8:03 this morning. All charges dropped. You're both free. Permanently."
Ist sehr her.
Free?
Free.
The president herself signed the order an hour ago. Something about extraordinary public service. She actually smiled. "You're a legend in the building, Miss Chen. Try not to let it go to your head." I laughed. It came out wet and shaky and perfect. They gave me my clothes back, minus the red dress, now evidence, and walked me out the front door at 11:47 a.m. The sun was blinding. Dante was standing on the sidewalk in the same black shirt he'd worn the day they arrested him, sleeves rolled, hair longer, eyes older but alive. He looked like he hadn't slept in months. When he saw me, the last piece of armor he'd been wearing cracked clean off his face. We didn't speak. We ran. I hit him so hard we almost fell. His arms locked around me like he was afraid I'd vanish if he let go. I buried my face in his neck and breathed him in, prison soap and cold air, and the scent that was only ever him. He whispered my name over and over, like a heartbeat. I felt his tears on my skin, and didn't care who saw. Dad and Lucia were 10 feet away. Dad had his arm around Lucia's shoulders. She was crying so hard her mascara ran in black rivers. When we finally pulled apart enough to breathe, Dad walked over and hugged us both so hard I heard Dante's spine pop. "Welcome to the family, son," Dad said, voice rough. Dante laughed through the tears. "Yes, sir." Lucia punched him in the arm, then hugged him again. "Never do that to me again." We stood in the sunlight for a long time. 6 months later. The beach was quiet except for waves and gulls. 10 people total. No security. No press.
Just family.
Dad walked me down an aisle made of driftwood and white rose petals scattered in the sand. I wore a simple white linen dress that cost $60 and felt like $1 million. My hair was down loose, the way Dante likes it.
Nos chus.
The Pacific was cold on my toes and perfect. Dante waited under an arch Lucia had built from cedar branches. He wore linen pants rolled at the ankles, white shirt open at the throat, rolled sleeves showing the new tattoo on his forearm, a tiny paper airplane with my initials hidden in the wings. When Dad put my hand in his, Dante's fingers shook. The officiant was an old friend of Dad's from the Corps. He kept it short. We wrote our own vows. I went first. Dante Moretti. You saw me when I was trying to disappear. You stood in front of me when I wanted to hide behind you. You gave me your name when I had forgotten mine. I promise to choose you every single day, even the days the past knocks on the door. I promise to fight beside you, not for you. I promise to love you loud when the world goes quiet, and quiet when the world gets too loud. You are my safest place and my bravest fight. I'm keeping you. His voice cracked on the first word.
Arya Chen.
You looked at me like I was just a man, and I became one again. You burned the world down to bring me home, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to light another match. I promise to carry the groceries and the trauma. I promise to make you laugh when you feel small only when you want to be held. I promise to love you on the days I don't love myself. You are the consequence I thank God for every single morning. I'm keeping you. We both cried. Dad handed me the rings, plain platinum bands we picked out together in a week after we got out of the system. Inside mine, we are the consequence. Inside his, forever is not long enough. We kissed while the sun set behind us, and 10 people who'd bled for us cheered like we'd just won the war all over again. That night we stayed in a little cabin on the beach. Windows open. Salt air. No locks on the doors because we didn't need them anymore. We made love slow and reverent and a little desperate, like we were proving to each other we were really here. After, we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like sun and sand. He traced the scar on my shoulder from the prison fight. Still beautiful, he whispered. I touched the new ink on his chest, my name in small script over his heart. Still mine. We fell asleep to the sound of waves and each other's breathing. Some mornings I still wake up reaching for a gun that isn't there. Some mornings he still checks the windows 3 times. But most mornings we wake up slow, coffee on the deck, watching the ocean do its endless dance. I went back to flying, but only the routes I choose. Sometimes I take him with me. First class. He holds my hand the whole flight like he's afraid I'll vanish. He sold every piece of the old life. Started a real logistics company, legal, boring, profitable. He's good at it. Turns out running clean is easier when you're not looking over your shoulder. Lucia opened an art therapy studio for kids who've seen too much. Dad moved into the guest cottage behind our house on the coast. He and Dante argue about barbecue techniques every Sunday, and it's the best sound in the world. We kept the ring from the auction. It lives in a box on the dresser. Sometimes I take it out and remember the woman who wore it like armor. I'm proud of her, but I don't need her anymore. The red dress we burned on the beach the night we got married. Watched the silk catch and curl and turn to ash while we drank cheap champagne from the bottle. Some nights the past still knocks. We let it in, make it tea, listen to what it has to say, then walk it back to the door. Because monsters only win if you keep the door locked from the inside. We don't.
Hey you.
Yeah, you. The one who cried with us, screamed with us, held your breath for 90 minutes straight.
Thank you.
This story was never just about a flight attendant and a mafia boss. It was about every single one of us who's been told we're too broken to be loved, too small to fight back, too tired to keep going. You're not.
You are the consequence.
And you are unstoppable. If this story wrecked you in the best way, do 3 things for me. Drop "We Are the Consequence" in the comments so I know you made it. Hit subscribe because I'm not done telling you you're stronger than you think. Share this with one person who needs to remember they can burn the whole thing down and still build something beautiful from the ashes. I love you guys more than words. The next story is already cooking, darker, sweeter, wilder, and it starts with a single text message that should never have been sent. Stay fearless. I'll see you there.